You read a page for the third time, and everything looks familiar. The headings make sense, and the examples seem obvious. You can follow every sentence, and that feeling is satisfying. Because familiarity, well, it feels a lot like knowledge. Then, you close the book and try to explain the idea without looking. The structure disappears, and you remember a few words, maybe the location of a diagram, but not the explanation itself. This is one of the most common learning traps. You are just confusing recognition with actual recall. Recognition happens when the info is there, and the brain says, I have seen this. Recall happens when the information is absent, and you must rebuild it. Exams, conversations, decisions, and real-world use require recall. Repeated reading just gives you more chances to recognize the same stuff. Picture two paths through a forest, one with bright signs every few meters. The route feels easy because the signs tell you where to turn. On the second path, the signs are gone, and you must find the way alone. Rereading is the path with signs, but retrieval is walking without them. The difficulty of the second path can be misleading. When you struggle to remember, it feels as if the method is failing. In fact, the struggle reveals the exact places where the memory is weak. Easy familiarity just hides those gaps from view. This does not mean reading is useless. You need input to retrieve anything. The problem begins when reading becomes your entire study cycle. Information enters your brain repeatedly, but is rarely asked to leave. A useful mental model is input, close, rebuild, and compare. Take in a small section, then close or cover the material. Rebuild the main idea in your own words, then compare it to the source. Correct what is missing, because that is how you actually learn. This loop is simple, but it changes the role of the learner. You stop being a consumer of information and become a producer. The blank page eventually becomes a mirror. Many students avoid this because retrieval feels uncomfortable. A blank mind can feel like a failure. Rereading offers immediate progress. The pages move. The highlighting grows. But retrieval interrupts that comfort. It forces you to see that understanding, while looking is not remembering. Another common mistake is trying to retrieve at the wrong scale. Reproducing an entire chapter from memory is usually too difficult. The task becomes so large that you give up and return to reading. Use smaller units, one concept, one process, or one question. Questions are useful because they create handles for your memory. Instead of reviewing a heading, turn it into an actual question. A heading is just a label, but a question forces the brain to perform. The quality of the answer matters more than how polished it sounds. A rough explanation, sketch, list, or summary reveals if the structure is available. You are not writing a final essay. You are testing the bridge. Spacing strengthens the loop. If you retrieve immediately, memory holds the answer. Waiting later increases difficulty, and it provides a more honest test. The goal is to revisit the idea after some forgetting has begun. Forgetting is not the enemy. A small amount creates the need to reconstruct. Reconstruction strengthens access, like lifting a weight that is challenging but possible. If the answer is always visible, the memory does not have to lift. Feedback completes the process. Retrieval without correction just strengthens errors. After attempting the answer, compare it with a trusted source. Mark what was accurate, what was missing, and what was confused. A practical session might look like this. Read 2 pages, then close the book. Write 5 sentences. Draw 1 diagram, and create 3 questions from memory. Check the source. Correct the diagram, then review the questions tomorrow. Notice how different this feels from highlighting 10 pages. The session covers less material, but more of it survives without support. It also helps to mix related topics once the basics are understood. If practice is always blocked, the method is obvious. Mixed practice requires you to identify which method applies. Teach the idea to an imaginary beginner, This exposes hidden jumps. When you cannot explain why a step follows, you have not understood. Use simple language if you need the textbook. The knowledge is not yours. Be careful with confidence after rereading. It rises faster than actual recall. After retrieval, confidence falls because the gaps become visible. A map with missing roads is better than a map that invents them. The goal is not to make studying difficult. It is to use difficulty. Random confusion is not valuable. Clear questions and closed books are. An honest attempt and timely feedback create productive difficulty. Return to the familiar page. It still has a role to play. Read it once with attention, then close it before the smooth feeling. Ask the idea to appear without its signs. Retrieval can be social too. Ask a friend to give you a question without hints. Explain the concept aloud and invite them to interrupt when a step is unclear. The other person does not need to be an expert to notice your vague phrases. Phrases like, "and then it just happens," show where the structure needs repair. Conversation turns memory into something observable. If the path disappears, you have not failed. You have discovered where to build. Rereading tells you that the material looks known, but that is a lie. Retrieval shows whether the knowledge can stand when the page is gone. That is the loop that turns familiarity into actual memory.